Welcome to Alpha Wolf Trading. Did you know that there's over 12,000 stocks or companies that trade on the OTC? Between the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, you have over 7,000 companies. But us as retail investors, we wouldn't know that unless we were researching. Because why? Wall Street focuses on the elite, the big companies. And where the retail investor has their advantage is in small and micro-cap stocks. Why? Because you have the opportunity to speak directly with leadership. That is what this is all about here at Alpha Wolf Trading. We're trying to find the hidden gems, and we interview the executive teams of companies that we think meet the parameters to be those hidden gems. I also want to make sure you understand that this is not a paid-for promotion. I collect no compensation for the interviews I do here. These companies that I interview have been identified as potential opportunities for me and the members of Alpha Wolf Trading to receive a higher than average return on our investment. These companies I have identified either because of a technical setup on a chart, a fundamental change within the organization, new management team, new products, all kinds of different things that actually lead me here. But what do I think is the most important? Leadership. And that is why I do these interviews. I want to understand what drives the person that is leading the charge. I want to feel their passion. I want to understand their vision and the strategy that they're going to use to achieve success. That is what these interviews are for. I want to understand the share structure and the cap table, the size of the TAM, the total addressable market. This is the opportunity to learn all of those things. So sit back and enjoy. And if you learn anything from today's interview, do us a favor. Subscribe to the Alpha Wolf Trading YouTube channel. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I recommend highly that before buying any security, speak to a financial advisor and do your own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with a follow-up interview, and it's been a while, and it wasn't on purpose. It was really, I've paid attention and continued to watch the story. I've been so busy. As everybody knows, this has been a pretty brutal time for small and micro cap names in the market. But, I'll say it again, I've never been more excited about the opportunities that are out there in the market because of how brutal it has been for the small and micro cap names. We've got some really fantastic companies that are doing amazing things, and in my personal view, have not been rewarded for what they have accomplished. So, and this is a perfect example of that. I have Aras Azadian, who is the CEO founder of Avicanna, which is and I want to make this real clear, a biotech cannabinoid, is it cannabinoid? How do I? Let's just say marijuana company that actually has an epilepsy drug that has now been approved and has a lot of other exciting things going on. But I'm going to let Aras go ahead and share that story. First thing, Aras, thanks for coming in and doing this, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for keeping your eye on the story, Tim. It's been probably about a year or so since we've connected, but yeah, it's been an incredibly difficult journey, I would say, for the last few years, but a very rewarding one. We haven't seen the effect of which into the market yet, but a little bit. We've seen a little bit of it, but we haven't really, I believe, gotten the reward that we deserve. But I think difficult times do make it better for the companies like us that have executed, that have delivered. In one sense, we're seeing an elimination of potential competitors. We're seeing reduction in terms of assets and capital for some of our competitors. So we've executed, we've delivered. I love to obviously highlight some of the stuff we've accomplished, but I believe we sort of have a clear sky ahead of us now. And I think we're going to be leveraging of all the learnings and the efficiencies that we built over the last 2-3 years to sustain and survive the last period. But some quick highlights, I think I would say 2-3 major things that are worth highlighting. Last year we generated about $4 million of revenue in 2022. 2023, we increased that revenue to almost 17 million. So about 315% growth in our revenue, about 500% growth in our gross profit. And that's because I would simply say the company's now in commercial stage. The company's in growth stage. Our proof of concept of our proprietary formulations and products have worked, and the patients are benefiting from these products. And now, we had growth through organic growth in terms of patient benefits and growth, but also we acquired the largest pharmacy chain in Canada. If anyone ever comes up here will know the name is Shoppers Drug Mart. They had a medical cannabis division called Medical Cannabis by Shoppers. We actually acquired that in a very strategic deal. We won that deal because we were able to provide them continuation of care and continuation of clinical trials, something that none of our so-called cannabis peers can do. And it's because the cannabis companies in Canada are generally, or almost all, recreational alcohol, tobacco sort of companies. And this is a very medical company. So we took over it. We successfully executed the transition into what is now called MyMedi.ca. We generated 13 million in revenue within 6 months out of that business unit. So that was a pretty big win for us. And MyMedi is now, I would argue, the most comprehensive medical cannabis care platform in the world. Has the most advanced products, including our own, but has patient support programs, education, training for physicians. And today, roughly 70% of our revenue for medical cannabis patients is actually covered by reimbursement. So the largest Work Safety Board of Ontario, WSIB, BC, WSBC, Veterans Affairs, all these institutions are paying for these patients to have not only the cannabis products, but also have that full patient support program that we've built. So that's a pretty big one. I'm not sure if you saw that story, Tim, but that was the acquisition that we announced, and I think it's put us on the trajectory to achieve profitability this year and self-sufficiency, and we're certainly on track to do that. You can pause there if you have any questions about that, but yeah, the other one will be the drug approval to highlight for sure.
So, last time we spoke, I know that you were kind of deep in the weeds, with some pretty big pharma names, right? Now, I don't know how far along that has progressed, or if those things are still going on, but where are you at with those things?
Good question. So, we're part of originally a Johnson & Johnson incubator called J Labs. So we were mentored by senior J&J executives for a very long time, and we continue to be by some of them. That was like a pre-revenue, pre-commercial stage company. And we still have that, of course, those affiliations, but now we're actually currently engaged with about 8 pharma companies. So one of them is a major one in Brazil. They haven't allowed us to name them yet, but I can tell you they're the largest pharma company in South America. We're 3 to 4 months away from a drug approval in Brazil with them, which is a bit of a partnership. We announced last month another pharma partnership in Europe, which is a distribution partnership. So they're not coming to us for collaborations in that sense. In this particular sense, they want to take my finished products, which is a topical product we have for pain, and they want to distribute it into 17 countries. And they have the infrastructure. So that company, again, is a multi-billion-dollar revenue generating asset. And then we announced another one, I think a week later, which was a different European pharma company, one that's even larger. And they're actually doing a feasibility study of our drug delivery system. So we're sort of the Intel inside of their products. So those are just a few examples, but what's interesting is like the world, in terms of capital markets, maybe specifically hasn't realized that we are the intellectual property leaders when it comes to this space. But the people who have realized are the large pharma companies, and they do a lot more thorough due diligence than Tim does, So I think the validation or the proof in the pudding, Shoppers Drug Mart picked us. That's $100 billion market cap company in Canada. Like, the proof's in the pudding. Like these guys are all doing their homework and they're all landing at this small $40 million biotech company. They know why, right? The question is, how do we get out there and have other people understand that? So yeah, the pharma stuff is there. And then we got a drug approved called Trunerex. And I like to explain Trunerex. So Trunerex is a 10% CBD formulation that got approved for epilepsy, specifically to severe cases of epilepsy called Lennox and Dravet syndrome. And those are the same indications and the same dose that was the first FDA approved drug by a company called GW Pharmaceuticals that was then later acquired by Jazz Pharmaceuticals for about $7 billion. This is essentially a version of that, similar to that, similar indications, similar claims. It got approved in Colombia, where we produce our CBD isolate, which is so it's our own API, it's our own active ingredients, our own formulation, and we expect that to be able to expand into several other Central and South American countries, which when you add it up, it's still a couple of 100 million people. So it's a very interesting opportunity. It's not an FDA or Health Canada approved drug, but it is certainly one that we can, commercialize. It's already covered by insurance in Colombia. It will be covered in several countries when we launch it. And for people that will pay out of pocket, it's going to be a very accessible and economical product because we're the ones manufacturing it. So I think that's going to be something that's going to help a lot of people. I can tell you I have that product commercial in Canada under medical cannabis, and we have thousands of epileptic patients that are using it. I get all types of emails from their parents, the kids are seizure free, etc. So it's a really, really nice part of what we do. And that is our first drug. That's our first pharmaceutical. So, and I always say, like, it's really easy for recreational cannabis companies to pretend to be medical, but they can't pretend to be pharmaceutical. You cannot pretend that, right? You have to have the right infrastructure, right quality assurance, pharmacological packages, technical packages, and we've done that. And I think it's just a signal that we really have figured out the range between medical to pharma, and through medical you generate revenue, data, learnings, and then you optimize that towards pharma. And the potential of that is a global. It's not a Canada. It's a global. And while everyone else is racing to be the best recreational cannabis company, I argue that by far we're the best medical and pharma company.
You know what I love about you, man? You're a straight shooter and you exude confidence like nothing else, man. I mean, you just do,
Thank
right?
you. I keep going, right? Tim, I'm 9 years in the seat and I appreciate the comment, but man, I'm 9 years here. Like I never got the pump and dump. I never did that, right? I never exited in the cannabis frenzy when it was hot and everybody was excited. I was head down building a real company, right? And to your point, companies like us haven't been rewarded.
Right. So these are the things that I try to teach retail investors to look for, right? So what do you want? You want a CEO or a leader that is a warrior, which I would call you a warrior, right? You're
Appreciate
not
that.
going down.
No.
Uh, you do not do traditional financing with financial institutions, and that probably pisses a lot of people on Wall Street off.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
You have, if you look at the reg show, what do you see when you look at the reg show on your stock? Is there unusual activity in terms of shorts by any chance?
I mean, I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I'm personally certain that there is naked short activity on our stock, as there is on any other small and micro cap stock, and especially in the Canadian space. I think with us, my thesis on that is quite simple. You naked short a company like Avicanna as when you short the entire sector 4 years ago. Good short. I like your short business case. I support that. At some point, those companies died and we've excelled. So we're that 1 out of 100 that didn't die, that didn't suffocate and or was actually a real company. And the problem with that is we don't have the volume, and our cap tables are so tight in terms of who's been backing this company. And there's several large institutions and very, very powerful people that are shareholders of our company that, as you said, I don't do traditional financings. I've done drip financings through non-brokered private placements. So we're very tightly held. So whoever is short has probably realized they were wrong about us. The question is, how can they cover? And I don't think our stock allows that cover. So I think it's a very dangerous position for someone, if that's the case, to be in, right? And I think it might set the stage for something really great in terms of a squeeze, but that's something that obviously you can't predict. All I can do is continue to execute, because that's ultimately the way to win, right? It's fundamentals. And we were a $4 million revenue company, and now we're operating at a $30 million run rate. So the fundamentals are coming, and it's coming at an exponential rate that I don't think anyone could have predicted. So it's gonna come. That's what I think. But I'll just keep my head down and keep executing.
And you're not going to do a stupid financing. You're not going to do a 100% warrant coverage. You're not going to do 200% warrant coverage. You're just not going to sell at a 30% discount to market. You're not going to do any of that stupid shit, are you?
I never have, right? And I mean, I never have. And you look now, and that now with where we stand, that close to the finish line, of course not. And the thing is, you have to appreciate my level of confidence comes not just from me, but it comes from the execution of my team, and it comes from the support and confidence of the people behind me that are going, keep going. You're doing the right things. So of course we're not going to do anything stupid. If you look at the track record, look at the last 5 financings I've done. They were done at a premium, at best, and a half a warrant, non-brokered. It's always with a support group of people that really fundamentally support the company, and they're pretty excited because they're seeing the results. They were proven right. So no, we're not going to do any type of stupid finance. Absolutely not.
All right. So fully diluted outstanding, how many shares do you have roughly?
Outstanding is 92. I think fully diluted. I think about 105. I'm not 100% sure, but I can look that up. But we have some warrants, but it's within kind of where the stock's range is now. So we don't have any cheap warrants or anything like that. There's no cheap paper. It's very clean. This is an IPO company. It wasn't an RTO, so we didn't have like the skeletons of a shell or anything like that. So it's a very, very, very clean cap table.
So let me ask you a question. Where do you want to get to? What's your as you map it out, right? And I want to talk about the so if I remember correctly, you have a topical formula that whereas most things stop really at the upper layer of your skin, they don't really penetrate right into that's the difference with your product. It actually takes it where it needs to go. Is that accurate?
That's one of our products, right? So I think what you have to understand is we have a scientific platform that I would argue is by far the most advanced in the industry. So we, for example, recently announced we have a self-emulsifying drug delivery system that is used for enhanced absorption, because cannabinoids have really poor absorption, really poor bioavailability. That's why when someone takes a gummy, it takes an hour for it to kick in. Our oral formulations are designed for a 10-minute kick in. Or we have another version of the same technology that's designed for slow release. So for someone that, for example, benefits for sleep with THC, okay, you give them a 12-hour release THC, and that allows them to stay asleep. So we have these various drug delivery systems. The one you're alluding to is a transdermal gel technology that we've developed, that are these topicals that are actually designed to get into joints and muscles. We actually just wrapped that study up. We did a 100-patient study on that as well, and it was successful. And we are commercializing that product today, I think, about 4 countries. But the European deal we announced was for that. They want to take it in basically as an OTC product over 17 countries. So we're at that stage where people are going, oh, wait, this is real. Like, this is a real product. There's real data. There's real efficacy. And I don't want to use my very limited resources to hire a sales force in Germany and then hire a sales force for my epilepsy drug in Brazil. No, like, this is where I collaborate with pharma companies that have infrastructure, have sales force, have distribution. We are the intellectual property company, which is by far the most important thing. We are the IP, which is scalable, because I can manufacture in Mongolia and sell in Kazakhstan without ever leaving my office. I'm just transferring technology, right? So that's the beauty part of what we've done. And it's just crazy when I look back now, 9 years in the scene, and I say, I can't believe no one else dedicated resources to R&D and clinical. They all built greenhouses that are now being used for tomatoes.
You should be glad that is what
I
happened,
am glad, yeah. I mean,
right?
The recreational part has always been the shiny object, where most people don't know this. And this is an interesting fact. The United Nations Convention on Narcotics actually does not allow the export of recreational cannabis. So you could be the biggest cannabis recreational company in Canada. You're not exporting recreational. You can only export for medical or pharma purposes. So scalability of medicine is way bigger because it's global. And most of these countries that are not crazy like, Canada and to go full rec are going to allow legalization of medical first because they need to give access to patients. Everyone thinks it's going to be rec first. Why would you go rec first? The evidence is on medicine.
Right. And what I love about cannabis, and I think this needs to happen is, I mean, for pain, right? Um, get rid of these freaking opioids that are killing people, right? I mean, what you are doing is this is a need. This is, to me, it's a need. It's not a want. It's an absolute need, right? There's a difference. And when you have something that's a need, and you have somebody that's executing the way you're executing, and there is no sign that you're going to let up, you're actually just kind of, this is where it's starting to get, you can see it, can't you? I mean, you can almost taste it.
I can see it. It's already there, right? Like we feel it, the team feels it. Our momentum is definitely for the first time it's with us, right? Like it's supporting us. And it like you said, there's a need, and it's not just a need, Tim, it's a validated efficacy, right? So yes, you don't have your multiple phase 3 drugs approved by the FDA. Like, throughout history, there's been 1,700 or 1,800 drugs approved by the FDA. So that's a very tough path. But with cannabis, yes, we got a drug approved, and yes, we take a scientific and systematic and evidence-based approach, but you can still generate substantial evidence through real-world evidence studies and show a particular type of product is working. And because the harm or the toxicity issues with cannabinoids is so low, there is this like lower entry barrier that you can actually go and commercialize medical. And I think medical cannabis is more of a general category of its own for anxiety, depression, sleep, pain. Those are huge opportunities, right? And you can't say that people are only going to benefit from that once it's approved by the FDA. No, people are already benefiting from that. Someone just needs to do it in a systematic way that's organized, accurately dosed, and then have the data to go and train and convince the medical community to incorporate medical cannabis into the healthcare regimen. And that's what we do. That's our specialty. It's like we're gonna go and do that, and the proof is there. It's working. It's helping a lot of people. It's helping a lot of people with pain, sleep, anxiety, and then it helps people with much more critical indications like epilepsy. And that we always argue is not something a patient needs to benefit or should benefit from through a dispensary. They shouldn't go and get it from some 16-year-old kid that's saying, hey, man, smoke this joint. It's really good for your multiple sclerosis. No, that needs to be a properly dosed and titrated. We have 8 pharmacists on the phone. We have 30 people patient support program. That's all they're doing. They're basically saying, Mrs. Johnson, for your disease, here's something that we can legally tell you that you should dose and titrate with. And then often it's their physicians that call us. And then we're telling them because the physicians are typically naive when it comes to this. So we're building this proof of concept in terms of the real efficacy of medical cannabis in Canada, which I expect and I plan and I will expand globally as the leaders of this very complete package. And then I think that package then turns into something we call pharmacoeconomic packages, which is okay, so what is the benefit of this economically? Well, opioids cost a lot in lives, but also in dollars. So you can say, well, 30% of patients that, have used medical cannabis as for their pain and have been able to eliminate opioids, and therefore, using it as an example, therefore the cost savings for the healthcare providers or the short-term disability and long-term disability costs have come down. And you can actually quantify all that and present that as packages to insurance providers because that's all they can really care.
Right, right. Let me ask you a question. AI, all this AI stuff, I just want to, is any of that coming into play within your realm?
In a very, very small fashion, we're starting to incorporate some AI into our drug development process in terms of identifying what are the most optimal synergistic ratios of particular compounds? Because typically what we used to do is develop formulations, test them, put them into animal models, put them into human studies, etc. But what we've now intend to do is to incorporate, and I've done it through a third party for now a little bit, incorporate AI in earlier stage and say, okay, what is the most optimal ratio of CBD, THC, CBG, and then other compounds? Like, do you want menthol in there? Do you want beta carotene in there? You know, and we're starting to look at various clinical indications and use AI to give us a better chance at the early stage of what is the most optimal formulation, then take that into clinical work. So we will incorporate that, and I think there will be a component of AI that I think we can use to look at, you know, our 30,000 patients that we have today that are using medical cannabis on my platform, how to map that and say, like, where are the best opportunities? You know, is it sleep? And if it's sleep, what's the demographic that's benefiting from it the best? And then what products are they using? Right. And then we're mapping that, and we're doing that in a sort of an analog fashion today. But I think AI can potentially be incorporated into that, and that could be interesting.
I mean, I see with you know the whole pharma, you know, the very personalized
Medicine.
medicine directly, you know, with your genes and there. I mean, the whole very. I can see that because I'll tell you right now, man. I don't smoke pot. My brother, he smokes pot like it's, you know, nothing, right? I have a very violent reaction to marijuana. I mean, I get extremely sick. I mean,
Is
like,
that from an edible or from smoking?
huh? From it was from smoking. You
Wow.
know,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, literally, I turn green and start. It's horrible, right? And it lasts for a while. But both my brothers, you know, they both smoke pot. It doesn't bother them at all. I love the smell of it. I can't touch it. I mean, I just can't, right? Because it's a horrible reaction. So that's something genetic within me,
Yeah.
right? I don't know what it is, but
There's
it's
there's
not
there's
a
a
good reaction.
portion of the population. I think it's about 10 or 15% that are either allergic to cannabis or have this negative reaction, but a lot of them are actually more allergic to when they orally consume it, because THC specifically, it metabolizes through your liver into something called 11 hydroxide THC, which that particular molecule, I actually don't have a very good response to that. A lot of people have a diverse reaction to, and that's what people really have. That's why people can smoke a lot generally, and it doesn't really. They just probably just don't want to smoke anymore. But then you hear of cases where people eat too many edibles and then they're knocked out for 2 3 days. That's because that's that 11 hydroxide THC, which is a metabolite. It's not even THC; it's a different molecule, and that has a significant adverse event or effect on people. And this is the kind of stuff that when you're dealing with something that's biological and scientific and needs to be studied properly, and you have an entire sector that gives absolutely no crap about that, you have the issues like this, right? Like, and I've asked a lot of dispensary owners, like, do you know why a lot of people don't like edibles? And they'll just be like, no, just some people it doesn't work well for. I'm like, do you have any idea why? They're like, no. I'm like, it's the metabolite. I'm like, you didn't know, and I explain it to people, and they're like, oh, and that's something that should be out there. So like my point is, of course, we educate physicians and patients, but that's how little work has been done in terms of actually understanding the mechanisms of all this stuff, and then actually teaching people about it, which is dangerous, right? And but with that said, you know, cannabis has been legal for 5 years in Canada. We've had zero deaths.
You just nailed it, right? I mean, look, opioids. You and I can both agree, highly addictive, lots of deaths, right? If you can find an alternative within cannabis that reduce the pain, because a lot of people, back pain is one of the worst things people, I mean, it's horrible, right? If you can help them with a non-addictive solution, right? How many lives are you saving?
Yeah, but I want, you know, I want to be realistic. Look, the analgesic effect of opioids in terms of like numbing, in terms of that effect that it has, where someone's going through surgery, they need to, you know, have that you're not replacing with cannabinoids ever. I don't, unless there's some cannabinoid you haven't discovered that actually works with kind of the same receptors. So I don't think it's the panacea to everything, but there's a lot of fibromyalgia, neuropathic pain, chronic pain, long term pain inflammatory pain that I think cannabinoids can substantially support, and they can help, and that can help reduce opioid use, and that can help wean people off opioids. So there's certainly room for it. I don't think it's going to eliminate opioids, but I think it's definitely a tool in the toolkit to reduce the opioid use, right, across at least some cases. And that you can see in, even recreational markets where cannabis has been legalized, there's been a reduction in opioid use. So people are naturally doing it, but you need to get physicians on board. You got to get pain specialists on board. We work with, who's now the president of the Canadian Pain Society here in Canada, Dr. Hans Clark. He's a world-renowned clinician, scientist, and we're doing a 1,000 patient study with him right now, where we're testing the benefits of cannabis through my medical platform for anxiety, pain, depression, and we're actually measuring the opioid reduction as well. So this stuff is being done, and we will be publishing it, and we will be speaking about it. But to your point, again, going back into like the market opportunity, this was super early stage stuff on the medical side, right? Because the benefits are there.
Yeah. All right. So listen, man, I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything that I haven't covered that you really want to highlight before we end this?
No, I think one thing I'll say, because I imagine a lot of your audience are Americans, and the U.S. like everyone's attention's on like legalization of rec. I've seen that movie before in Canada, right? And like I'm excited for that because I think it just needs to happen anyways, and I think that's going to open up opportunities for investors and more pharma biotech institutions entering the space. But I just want everyone to understand that there's a big difference in recreational to medical pharma, and the DNA of a medical pharma company is very different than that of a recreational company. And I believe if the opportunity for recreational is that exciting, they should be more excited about medical, and they are different players. So pick your winners within each side, right? And I think that's the part that everyone should focus on.
Okay, so one thing I want to make sure people understand, there have been finances, they've all been, for the most part, private placements, which means they're friendlies, means they know the company intimately, and they are planning to hold for the long haul. And correct me if I'm wrong, but typically if you do a private placement, it is for a very strategic reason, maybe an acquisition, right? But it is a very strategic move. You don't just do a raise to do a raise, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So
things are under control. Shareholders are very, very closely knit, and they're all sophisticated. They've stuck with the company, and you can see that from the supply side of the stock that it's through artificial pressure. And I think those guys are the same people that were part of my $8 IPO round, etc. So their average price is way higher than here. I think that's worth noting.
Okay. Do you have any skin in the game?
I'm still a very large shareholder. I think I still own 6 or 7%, and I've taken a lot of my previous last 2-3 years salaries and RSUs, and that's all public materials, so you can see that, which I'm sure you're not surprised to hear. I've also never sold one share, so that tells you how I feel.
All right. So ticker symbol is AVCNF if you're for the OTC, and here's what I recommend. Go to the website. If you're not in the stock or you don't want to jump in today, okay, but at least put it on your radar. Sign up for their email alerts and follow along to what this company is doing. This is a need, I believe, and I think this is a company that is doing real good for a lot of people. And when real investors support a company like this, that's how they succeed. And if you get in at the bottom, that's how everyone gets rewarded at some point for the good that's being done. You get rewarded in my belief is you get rewarded in more ways than one, because you're helping a company grow, survive, and become something significant to a lot of people that need a solution. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Here's what I'd like to do, man. What do you think is the next catalyst that might we might want to talk about? Give me a timeline as maybe when we might want to do a follow-up. And I don't want it to be like 2 years.
No. I think we're accelerating now, right? So more milestones being met are also accelerating. So look, we're gonna have a good Q1, which we'll file in mid-May. That'll show some good fundamentals. I think that's just good for everyone to read. But let's do one of these calls in, I would say, 3 to 4 months, and there'll be a lot more to talk about, especially on the pharma and international stuff, which is now sort of the next focus for this year.
Okay, perfect. Ross, let's not let this thing slip away again, right? I mean, partially it was on me. Mainly it was on me. I
Hey
had
man,
so much stuff going on. So I take the rap on it, but I'm not going to let it happen again. This time I'm going to pay much closer attention. All right.
Appreciate it. No, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. It's fun to have these conversations. So thanks again.
All right. So hold on one second. I'm going to shut this off. We'll have you back again real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to today's interview with Aras Azadian from Avicanna, ticker symbol AVCNF. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, please do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are extremely important to us here at Alpha Wolf Trading, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Trading wishes you the very best of success.